So there's been plenty of chatter around the second Red Bull seat in Formula 1, and if that sounds familiar to you, that's because it's only happened in 2018, 19, 20. And yeah, I think there's not been that much chatter ever since Sergio Checo Perez got into the seat, but now suddenly his seat is in danger, and the man being linked to that seat more so than anyone else, the return of the prodigal son, Daniel Ricciardo.
I mean, yes. When to give a little bit of context, Helmut Marko has come out and said that Danny Rick will be testing at Silverstone, and he'll be running, I think, 3 tests.
Yes.
Because it is a tyre test, and it is sort of a warning for Checo, although it hasn't been said, of course, no one would say it directly. But then it is a warning to Checo. And I was reading a few, quotes of Helmut Marko and going through some of his interviews.
How many of them? Because he gives a lot.
Yeah, plenty. And then what I came to the conclusion of, yes, it is very true that signing Danny Rick or having him as a third driver is very much a warning to Checo, because I remember reading this article. Of course, it was an interview turned into an article, whatever. But Helmut Marko, in a completely different, it had nothing to do with Daniel Ricciardo or Checo or whatever. It was about something else, and he out of nowhere talked about Checo, and he said that when it comes to Max Verstappen, there are only 2 drivers on the grid that can match his expertise or can match his aggression at the moment, and he named Alonso and Hamilton, right? So that I kind of put
it's a subtle chart.
Yeah. If you link the links and connect the dots, it is very clear that Checo is kind of in danger when it comes to his seat, because Danny Rick is testing now. He's been
he's part of the team, and you know for a fact that you know what you get with Ricciardo. If you're looking at race resumes, remember, this is the same Sergio Perez who throughout his career was a midfield driver, got his one win and in fact, ironically got his win at a time when he wasn't sure of his seat, and that win at the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix is pretty much what got him the Red Bull seat. Ricciardo, on the other hand, 8-time race winner, multiple podium finishes, someone who is a very proven quantity, especially when you put him in a winning car. And also, if you're looking at Verstappen's teammates, who he's had in his Red Bull career, and there have been plenty. Albon, Gasly.
All rookies.
All rookies, but Ricciardo, also it is worth noting, was only 2 or 3 years into his career when Verstappen came in, and Ricciardo was really the only one who could hang with him. So, if you're looking at it, and if you're trying to put 2 and 2 together, if you think you don't really have an option from your juniors yet, and if you want to go with someone who's proven, Ricciardo fits the bill.
He does, and I mean, if you look at Danny Rick and the way that his career has panned out, and Danny's talked about this very openly, is that when he was in the junior program, in the Red Bull junior program, he was only looking at progressing, right? And once he was in that Red Bull seat, he wanted to find Red Bull wasn't his ultimate goal, because he knew Max Verstappen was there, and there was never a chance of him being the number 1 driver.
Certainly not once Max came out.
Exactly. And Danny Rick was always looking for a team that would prioritize him.
Correct.
But then he went to Alpine, didn't work
out there.
Renault, didn't work out.
Same team, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. And then he went to McLaren. Of
that
course,
didn't work out.
That didn't work out. We all know about that. But then Danny Rick, I think, has been so gutsy about his career, because he said he walked out of the McLaren deal, and then he declined on Haas this year, and went for being the number 3 driver for Red Bull.
Exactly.
Which is a very gutsy move when it comes to it. But it all has played into his favor, because look at the way that Christian Horner and Marko are treating Daniel Rick.
Exactly.
And it could very well be that Daniel Rick comes back to the F1 grid next year, because there have been talks about him coming back to AlphaTauri.
Exactly. So there's 2 things. Of course, that AlphaTauri link, very, very important, and it's coming from not just anyone, by the way, but it's coming from Lawrence Barretto, who's of course a presenter with F1. And by the way, if you think Barretto's sources can be hit or miss, he was one of the first ones who called Mick Schumacher joining Mercedes as a reserve driver. So even if it doesn't work out that way, even if Ricciardo doesn't join AlphaTauri, he's very much an option. But the biggest thing, and by the way, the biggest hint that was dropped, Ricciardo himself, recent interview, he said it would be my ultimate dream to retire with Red Bull.
Ooh.
I don't think the timing
Shots
of this,
fired.
I don't think the timing of those quotes is a coincidence at all.
No, I mean, not at all.
Yeah.
Helmut Marko and Christian Horner have been so telling in their recent interviews. Like when you look at the way that Christian Horner has been talking about Danny Rick, you know, and the way that McLaren has treated him, especially, you know, they talk of him as one of their own, like a family member.
Yeah.
And that has really shown that Danny Rick is all set to make a comeback, be it with Alpha Tauri
or even Red Bull.
For that reason, because I don't think it's going to be next year that Danny Rick comes back to Red Bull. I think he'll, you know, kind of progress the way that Red Bull has been, you know, kind of get into the junior team, which is not really the junior team anymore. But then it's still a stepping stone when it comes to getting into Red Bull. So Danny Rick, I think next year, Alpha Tauri, and then maybe later when they look at Checo's performance and kind of really analyze, because the way you see this year, the season has panned out horribly for Checo. I mean, we all love him, but then when we want him to stay in the F1 grid, but he has not been, you know, up to the mark. And when you have someone like Max Verstappen sitting next to you, that's not very good. You know, you're constantly being compared to the best. And you're in a rocket of a car.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
and
the power
you still
problem.
can't make the best out of it. So I think that's what's really troubling when it comes to Checo. And Helmut Marko and Red Bull management, I believe, is really looking for someone who's going to challenge Max Verstappen.
Or if not just challenge, actually be up there to pick up the pieces when Verstappen isn't. Right now, that isn't happening. Okay, you know, we know Verstappen is flying in that car, absolute rocket. What if he suffers a failure? What if he spins? And sometimes that's out of your control. You can't always be perfect, even if there's no one challenging you. Is Checo going to be there to pick up the pieces? Doesn't seem like it, because you have an Alonso and a Hamilton fighting closer to Verstappen in inferior machinery. See, that's the problem when it comes to Checo's, let's say, driving. I don't know whether it comes down to it, maybe him getting that chance too late. But even if you compare him to someone like, say, Valtteri Bottas, also, I would say at most a slightly above average driver, but who, when he was at Mercedes, did two things. One, he consistently pushed Lewis in qualifying, was always up and thereabouts, occasionally even beat Lewis because he was quick over a single lap. And then there were times when he would even piece together a perfect weekend, get the win, or if something happened with Hamilton, you know, Bottas was there to pick up the pieces. With Perez, you're not getting that right now. And by the way, if I had to rate them on race pace, I would say Perez is a better driver. But where Bottas put himself in an advantage was he had a quick car and he could land it in the front row. So once he was there, he became very hard to catch.
Yeah, right. When you look at the Mercedes domination, it was always P1, P2.
P1,
right?
P2.
We're not seeing that with the Red Bull.
In fact, go back.
Verstappen.
Yeah, and in fact, go back when they were the dominant team of, when I'm saying 2014 to 16, those 3 years when it was Lewis versus Rosberg for the title. It was almost always those two.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was P1, P2 or P2, P1 on depending on who was where. More often than not, it was just them fighting for the wins. And that is the point of having two drivers who could at least, very least, be equally matched. Perez right now is fallen so far behind ever since he won at Baku that he took the pole at Miami, didn't convert that into a win. Then thereafter, he's had 3 races where he's not been able to make it out of the top into Q3, which is a problem.
He's not ending the race in points either.
Yeah, there were some races. In fact, it was Monaco, where he couldn't even make it through the grid because, of course, it's Monaco. But that is the big problem. And with Ricciardo, there are obviously doubts. Let's be very fair. He looked very good at Renault. I thought that could be something good. He chose to walk away. At McLaren, he looked a shell of the driver. And I know that a lot of that was
the car.
Yeah, it was definitely the car. It was definitely the car because you're seeing it now. They've become progressively worse over 3 seasons to the point where not even Lando Norris can drag a good performance out of the car. So it was definitely the car, not just Ricciardo. And the fact that Ricciardo himself has a certain kind of driving style that works in a certain kind of car.
It would
definitely work in this Red Bull.
Yes.
That's the
and
thing.
Also when you look at it, when you're looking at the whole Max, Checo and Daniel debacle sort of thing, when you look at it, teams, how it works, how F1 works is teams obviously, of course, aren't just going for that P1, right? Let's just take Red Bull into scenario, right? Max Verstappen is winning you all the races. Okay, that's good and well. But then teams are also wholeheartedly going for that constructors championship.
Exactly.
Like you want that prize money. and there is a prize money.
Yeah,
right?
constructors is what
Yeah.
gives you the majority of the prize money.
Exactly, you are going for that, and if both of your cars are not ending in the top 3, you're not getting the constructors championship.
Exactly. That is also a big problem, and that's where I think Ricciardo is even being considered. But quick question before we close: do you think he would deserve this seat?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I think he's put in a lot of work, which has been undermined by, bad teams, or
Bad choices.
bad choices or bad management. I'd say, because when he was in Renault, I think that
He was showing flashes.
He was really good at 6 times. Has he? No.
He didn't win races with them, but he was.
No, he didn't.
He won. He got like
won.
3 or 4 podiums with them. He won the race with McLaren,
Okay.
Italian Grand Prix.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't win a race with Renault, but he got like 3 or 4 podiums, and that was overperforming the car.
Exactly.
So he was capable even in a team that was not Red Bull.
And I remember this being the way that Danny Rick was working in that car with the late braking. That's where we really discovered the real, Daniel Ricciardo as a driver.
Always the master of the late brakes.
Yes, exactly. And if he can do that with the Renault, you can do it. You
With
can
the
do much
2023
better with the 2023 Red Bull,
or maybe even the 2024 Red Bull.
or maybe in the 2020.
Alpha
Let's
Tauri.
see what he does in the Alpha Tauri.
If he gets that seat,
if
yes.
he gets it, but F1 has posted it, and I think that's a
very big
strong
indication.
Very strong
Exactly.
indication. So I think Danny Rick deserves it.
I would agree.
Especially after that McLaren.
I would agree, but I would also say that there's a bit of a, and again, I've said this about their seats for a while, little bit of short-termism, same thing which happened with Perez. Again, Ricciardo not getting any younger, but if you want proven quality, then he's a better racer than Perez. Someone who's won races in top cars, or in cars that weren't necessarily top cars.
Yeah.
I think he would do a really good job in this, and would definitely maybe even push Max, because Max needs a bit of pushing, not been pushed since maybe mid 2022. Hasn't happened, and I think Ricciardo could be the one to do it in equal machinery. So that's what we feel about this. But what do you guys think? Well, you can let us know that in the comments below, and don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and tap that bell icon. Also follow us across social media, and don't forget to
Download the AajTak app.
That's it from us though, from Gargi and me. It is. Bye bye.
Goodbye.